because again, I'm an educator. The most crucial part about our life as parents, as caregivers, is like the battle in social media, battle with the use of technology. I think educating our children that mental health, wellness is very important. I remember a conversation with President General, with Senator Gigi Osler, I think 2 weeks ago. We are very, I would say, fortunate that we have leaders in our community, in our provinces, in our country that truly believes in what we do. So I hope you can support in your little way, and let's continue to advocate this. If this happens in Manitoba, this could happen in Saskatchewan, in Calgary, and even other parts of the world, in Canada. Salamat po. All right, so how was lunch, everyone? How was lunch?
Very good!
Talking to lahat. How was lunch? There we go. I was smiling when I was getting the food. Somebody said, parang kasi kami ng dinosaur yung chicken. Hindi ko sabihin tayo. It's so lavish. It's so overflowing. I remember the church in Singling got to Manafao. So I am very, very blessed for that lunch. Maraming salamat. Can we give a round of applause for our host? Be all right, welcome back everyone. And this afternoon we move from speeches into the conversation. And perhaps this is where the real strength of the leadership convention becomes visible. Because leadership requires more than speaking, it requires listening.
Our community forum brings together leaders with work-conscious government, public policy, community development, international relations, diaspora engagement, business, tourism, gender equality, and health. And the questions before us are important.
I just have some few questions that I want you to ponder as we start this conversation today to make it more engaging. Who are we as Filipino Canadians today? How do we preserve our identity while strengthening our place within Canadian society? How do we respond to the realities facing more than 1 million Filipinos living in Canada and the wider global Filipino diaspora? And in a rapidly changing digital world, how do we use technology and innovation to strengthen and not weaken community and human connections?
Our forum will explore 3 interconnected themes: celebrating identity and community engagement, the current situation of more than 1 million Filipinos living in Canada, and the global diaspora, and Filipino digital age, community, leadership, and innovation in a connected world.
And these are not simply topics for today's program. They're questions about our future. Our identity tells us where we came from, and our engagement determines how we contribute today. And our leadership will help determine what opportunities exist for the generation that comes after us. And to introduce our facilitator, who will serve as our drivers, our pilot, and will make our conversation organized, balanced, and engaging. A meaningful conversation begins with thoughtful questions and leaders who know how to bring people together. Our forum today calls for a dialogue that is respectful, engaging, and looking forward and that one that encourages us, not only to reflect on our journey, but to imagine the possibilities that lie ahead for Filipino Canadians.
We are fortunate to have 2 outstanding community leaders guiding today's discussion. Giselle Nesmas, Chair of Chan-Gonzaga, Canada, is a passionate advocate for youth engagement, community leadership, and strengthening Filipino-Canadian organizations through collaboration and innovation.
Joining Giselle is Ms. Claire Delegada, Program Director of GBA Golden Alumni, whose extensive experience in community development, leadership training, and strategic planning has helped build stronger and more connected communities. Together, they will facilitate a conversation that we hope will inspire new ideas, meaningful partnerships, and collective actions. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming our distinguished facilitators, Giuseppe and Claire. Can we give them a round of applause?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I know you had a huge chicken. A slice of chicken.
Yes.
And as Mary Grace said, we're no longer just Mary Jane. Too many Marys in the world. Okay, so we're not just 500,000 Filipinos. We're over 1 million Filipinos here. So if I may borrow Senator Osler's line, you can do much better than that, okay? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good. Hi. I would just like to thank everyone for including youth today. I see some fellow peers in the back, and we're so excited to host the panel tonight. And I just like to start off that I am the chair of Ambassor. We are a national youth-led, youth-run, youth-centered organization that is guiding the next generation of change makers on their journey to success. And if that is something that piques your interest or something that you'd like to support, you can find me in the back. I have a few one-page or something to say.
Thank you very much, Giselle. And it's such a pleasure to be standing here today with Giselle. Giselle and the Tita. So it's another Tita tandem for this afternoon. And we are going to try as much as we can, our very best, that you do not fall asleep. And if you notice, our microphones are cordless.
Yeah.
So I do tend to go around sometimes, so don't let me catch you sleeping. Questions. Okay, so grab your coffee, no sugar, no milk, and then we'll start as soon as we can. Okay. So what are we going to do? As I have mentioned, it's going to be a conversation, right? We're going to have a conversation. It's not just us doing all the talking. We will be facilitating the conversation. You will be given the chance to ask questions and speak as well. However, having said that, we are on a very tight schedule, so we would like to set some ground rules, or should I say house rules, how we are going to do it, okay? Especially with the Q&A, okay? Just so we will be, everyone will be mindful that we should stay on track with the time. So when you ask your questions, we will give you that opportunity, right? You said, I will be going around. We are going to have actually our Q&A portion. So during the conversation, if you have any questions in mind, write it down. Make use of the paper and pen that's right on your table. Park your questions. Now we will go into the Q&A, and in the Q&A, there's only 4 things that you need to say. Okay, your name, organization, if you represent an organization, which seat your province, and get right into the question. Okay? How do you say? Walang paligoy-ligoy. Just get right to it, okay? And unfortunately, let's see how time is going to go. If it's going to be against us, there's no follow-up questions, unfortunately. But if everyone is mindful, we keep on track on the time, we'll give you the opportunity for follow-ups, okay? So, anything else?
Yeah, and to our panelists today, I would like to say there are no perfect answers. We invite respectful candor, different perspectives, and practical ideas. Please, we encourage you to speak from your experience. Avoid generalizing. We want to get into the nitty-gritty, and please help make space for voices that are not always heard.
Okay, are you all ready? Okay, so we're ready. So let us begin. Everyone for a yes, for a second. No. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Sorry, I'd just like to make an announcement that we are live with Tita Pinoy, with Regina Saucing from Ottawa. She is live here, so welcome to love. Good job, sister.
Thank you. So that's 30 seconds of her Q&A time. Okay, so should we begin? It's an honor and pleasure to be introduce you to your panelists for this afternoon. Can we get to that slide, please? We're going to do a very brief introduction, as we call them. Let's welcome them with a round of applause. The first panelist is the Ambassador of the Philippines to Canada, His Excellency Ambassador Gigi Chan. He's not been around, but he's going to be joining us in a few minutes. He's running late, but he's going to take one sponsor.
Secondly, we have the Honorable Minister Rechie Valdez for Women and Gender Equality and Secretary of State for Small Businesses. And it's her
You can choose your spot. So you get
First
first choice. Okay, that chair is actually going to answer the first question. Okay, and it's such an honor to have here with us in the midst of this convention, Secretary, that Honorable Dante, Secretary and Chairperson of the Commission on Filipino Overseas. We might change our mind.
And lastly, but not the least, the youth and the love from their mother is Senator Osler, who actually, fun fact, we're going into the Senate of Canada on my birthday.
Wow.
So everyone give her a round of applause.
Okay, we're going to take this. So you can start. Okay, so this question is for everyone, or who would like to go first. The first question is that if you had to describe the current state of the Filipino Canadians in one headline, what would that be? And what evidence or experience leads you to that conclusion?
I hope you don't mean like just one sentence.
No.
Good. I just want to give some context because, first of all, so honored to be here with Senator Chief Osler, Secretary and Secretary of the Philippines. How are you doing today? We're all both woken up for this conversation. Tina Pinoy, thank you so much for sharing this online as well. It's an honor to be here, but I want to give some very important context because when I was elected in 2021, the team at FCNC knows this, but one of the objectives I had, even becoming a minister, was going out and meeting for Filipino Canadians across the country to meet them exactly where they were at. And in 2021, I would say the community was a little bit separated. We were not really working very collaboratively. We didn't have too many Filipino-owned businesses at the time. But fast forward, I would say since 2021, what I would say now in 2026 is we are ready.
Yes.
Because I feel the momentum, I see the momentum, and I really want to thank the leadership of FCNC, who I still remember the first conversation we had in my office when I didn't really know what I was doing. But they inspired me because they said we have yet to have a national organization aligned to the Canadian-Filipino Friendship Group to ensure that our voices were heard. So because of the sacrifices you make coming to these events as often as you do across the country, I don't think you realize the power and the momentum you've helped create. So really, I want to thank all of you for continuing these vital conversations to ensure that at this moment in time, we would be ready for what's to come. And that's my teaser because there's a lot of cool things that are happening. So really, thank you for all making the sacrifice to be here each and every time. So I just want to say, we are now 2026, and we are definitely a community that is ready. Woo!
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for the question. And if I circle back to that, how, actually, just say the question again.
Describe the current state of the Filipino Canadians in one headline.
Okay. So I'm not the media expert here. We have a media expert.
I'm not going to give you the headline, we'll leave that to our expert, but as you heard Minister Lemmer state earlier, as you heard Minister Valdez state earlier, 1 million people in Canada with Filipino heritage. A community that is the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing communities in Canada, ready. And when you ask other people, what's the community like? Especially my fellow MPs, they say, Filipinos, love them. They are so hardworking. They are the nicest people. I usually say, think of the Filipino community, you have 4 F's: fun, family, faith, food. And when we go somewhere, we build communities. We were talking about immigration and how when Filipinos move to a community, they stay, they work. They don't often move away to Toronto or Vancouver. Many stay in the small town communities that recruited them. They bring over their family, they bring over their friends. The community grows and flourishes and thrives. Schools have to build extra classrooms. Churches have to add extra masses. New grocery stores pop up. New businesses start up. In Manitoba, there's a community called Minnedosa. Highland is a pork processing plant that has hired many Filipinos to come. Minnedosa is a small town, and it has been revived by the Filipino community. And I know in Winnipeg, we like to say per capita, we have the most Filipinos per capita. It's actually Minnedosa. 50% of the people living in Manitoba are Filipino heritage.
Yes, yes.
All of that now I hand over to my colleague to come up with the headline, because Minister Valdez and I have told you what the community represents to Canada. But we're going to leave it to you to come up with the headline.
Ministers, thank you for those kind words. As Senator said, my background is journalism. I'm struggling with maybe from the, I bring a bit of perspective from the state of the Filipinos in Canada, because 30 years ago, it's very painful to say that, 30 years ago, I was assigned to the Filipino Consulate in Toronto, and I actually visited Charlottetown with the Ambassor, the late Ambassador, to do our outreach here. And I think back then it must have been maybe a dozen or so Filipinos here in Charlottetown. And despite the small number, there were no shortages of people willing to take in officers from the Filipino Consulate, because only the Ambassador had left for the local government. So we were taking it. And I remember back then, I'm trying to remember the figure, but I seem to remember that 300,000 Filipinos was the official number. We have that now. Wow, what a million. So I think that's testament to how well Filipinos are doing here. So obviously there is a big draw among the Filipinos choosing to migrate abroad and relocate, of course, virtually anywhere in the world. You go to any place, there's always Filipino, but we find that North America, US particularly, but also Canada, has been a major draw for Filipinos to migrate abroad. And I think that speaks to how well the Filipinos here have done with their careers. And I think I should also mention that it also speaks to how well Canada has treated our Filipinos and allowed them to thrive and find success. Now, I am not with the Filipinos. The Ambassador, just right, he's now here representing the Department of Foreign Affairs. So a president, my career with the DFA ended 30 years ago, but I'm here representing the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. Some of you were asking, what we are and what it is that we do. We are basically an agency under the Office of the President that looks after all of you, permanent and long-term migrants, expatriates, dual citizens, those participating in exchange programs, children, grandchildren. It's a mouthful. We struggle with a term, Ambassador, to capture all of them. We've been netted one just a few months ago, which is NRS. So non-resident Filipinos, inspired by the tax in the Philippines. So the 4 Ws, which none of you are actually temporary migrants in classification, and they are served by the Department of Environmental Workers. So our job basically is to connect all of you, about 60% of the total Filipino diaspora community, back to the Philippines in 3 points: political, economic, and cultural. The third migrant certainly is the Department of Foreign Affairs, which is leading the work on this as the nationals, and everything that we need to do from the Philippines. Of course, our embassies and consulates are there to help us out in this. So I would say, if I would choose a headline, the Filipinos are thriving in Canada. And then from the perspective of your Albanians at home, we're all very proud of you.
I know you have a follow-up question, and I think the ambassador is going to be the person to answer.
So we talked about the current state of Filipino Canadians just before you got entered. And my question to you, Ambassador, would be, now that you're working more closely with Filipinos across Canada, is there progress that we should recognize? Is there progress by the Filipino Canadians across Canada? Is there anything that stood out to you, any progress that we've contributed to?
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mr. Rechie, Senator, Secretary, and everyone. I apologize for being late. So we were at the other end of the island. I didn't realize it was going to take that long to get back to FCNC, where we were with Kababayans who are in the seafood processing industry. So we spent the morning with them, and I apologize that I'm late. But yes, definitely. When President Marcos was in Vancouver just over a month ago, it was my honor and it was my privilege to report to him that in all of my conversations here in Canada, whether with federal ministers like the colleagues of Minister Rechie in the cabinet, senators, members of parliament, and ordinary Canadians, I think there's no question that what you do, what you contribute to Canada is widely recognized from coast to coast to coast. And as I told the President in Vancouver, I'm happy to report actually that you guys are the best Philippine ambassadors here in the Philippines.
Wow.
So then my next question would be, I'll just give a little context. So many Filipino Canadians grow up feeling connected to the Philippines in very different ways. Some speak the language, others don't. Some visit often, while others have never been. Navigating multiple identities, being Filipino at home, feeling or being Canadian in public spaces, and sometimes feeling disconnected from the Philippines itself, is a topic that gets brought up amongst youth and even newcomers that interact with Kabanga. So my question would be to Secretary. As someone who works closely with Filipino communities around the world, you've seen many ways that people stay connected to their roots. What would you say to someone or a youth who didn't feel Filipino enough?
Oh, what is Filipino enough? I think it's well, and a lot of, as she said, young members of the generation are trying to grapple with their identity. I can sympathize with having spent many of my years, high school, college, a couple of years, my professional career, living in the U.S., and deciding eventually to return to the Philippines. And it's a struggle. But the good thing, and this is what I bring to the table. I actually wanted to come here to meet you because I understand that you work with that with the young members of the diaspora. Because we have a program at the CFO, which is the Youth Leaders in the Diaspora, which was formerly called up by ARA or study tour, but we injected leadership development and youth networking in that program. Basically, the ULEAD is a cultural immersion program, and for this, I wanted to make a picture, I'm trying to figure out how I mention it. It is a cultural immersion program meant to introduce the Filipino culture and heritage to the young members of the Filipino community. In the past, and I was only appointed to the CFO in 2024, the CFO actually waited for the communities abroad to reach out to us and say, well, we have this group of kids going to the Philippines. And what we do is we arrange the itinerary, schedule all the bookings. All they have to do, of course, they pay their own way, go to Manila, and they pay their accommodations and fees and whatnot. All they have to do is just land in Manila and then go through the program. So that has been a very successful program, which I don't think we do now. And thanks to the initiative of the Ambassador, we actually have a cohort from Canada who is, I think, flying to Manila next week. Of course, I won't be there to meet them because I'm here with you. But I think it's the first time we had a group from Canada join the ULEAD program. Earlier this year, we had a group from Australia. And many of them had been to the Philippines, of course, it's like many of you here, accompanying their parents, and they hated it. They resented, being brought along. But this was the first time they said that they were actually able to do the things they want. And they enjoyed the program so much they actually made a documentary which they submitted to the Australian Film Festival. It's going to be shown soon about their experience in the ULEAD program. So I'm glad to ask that. What we want to do is to have more based recommendations. And I'm inviting all of you, I'm sure you have children or nephews and nieces who are essentially Canadians, right? But when you look at the mirror of the Filipinos, of course, the Philippines wants them to discover their Filipino heritage and culture, because that's the way they can really engage with beyond generations. Philippines is heavily invested in the success of Filipinos overseas. And of course, you know about the remittances, how it does it, but the contributions go much farther than the remittances. And it is through these immersion programs that we're able to continue that engagement beyond the first generation. So if you are interested in having your children, your nephews, nieces participate in this, please talk to the ambassador or contact us directly through our website, and we would be glad to help them. In the past, the ULEAD program is limited to people between ages 16 and early 20s. And I was telling my staff ambassador, I'm now 57. The definition of youth is much broader than what involves. So we're trying to come up with an offering for essentially those age 40 and below. So that's still very young compared to yes, very much so. Of course, the challenge is on us to come up with a program because of what would interest Filipino Canadians in their 30s may not be the same things what would interest Filipino Canadians in their late teens. Right? So, but whatever it is that you want, whether it's for that age group or older, we are the CFO is like your secretary. We can do your groundwork in Manila or anywhere in the country. So reach out to us. That's what we get paid for. And we would love to explore any opportunities, whether it's with the youth or those who are young.
I might add to that. I think the question you asked is a very important one. When we talk about identity and how there's not one Filipino identity.
And I think as we have this conversation, as we look at a future state, having an open discussion and acknowledging that not everyone with Filipino heritage in Canada identifies the same way. Your identity may be different if you immigrated here as an adult, or if you immigrated here as a child, or if your parents immigrated when they were born here. And even for somebody like myself, mom's a Filipina, born here, but my parents, because English was the common language at home, they spoke English. So I don't speak Ilocano, I don't speak Tagalog. And the youth that you spoke of, I have heard that exact same phrase where I've told my story and said, and let me share with you. There was one moment I remember, I was in Toronto, it was when I was a physician, and the Filipino Association of Medical Students invited me to come speak to them. And they were so welcoming, and I said, you know what, I'm not that Filipino. I don't speak Tagalog, I don't speak Ilocano. But I said, no. You are one of us. You're a Filipino. And it made me cry. It brought tears to my eyes because I felt so welcome. I felt a community. I was included. I felt like I belonged. So having this discussion, how do all of those identities get that sense of belonging and inclusion in this community? Because that is what we need to ensure that the community continues to grow and really thrives in the future.
Yeah, we are finding that there's like a mutual relationship there where as much as you are supporting us, we love that we can help heal some childhood stuff for you guys as well.
And if I may add as well, we were talking about last night, because when we started doing all this community thing, my husband and I, 15 years ago, we initiated a youth leaders summit. And the very first topic was actually about identity. So we were talking about it, we said, I don't think it's the same nowadays, this time. But it hasn't really changed, it's still the same. You know, they're still talking about the same issues about identity, but compared to like 15 years ago where there's so much, I shouldn't say pain in the youth, nowadays it's more optimistic, it's thriving. And I think one good thing about that is that we have all these organizations, we all have these platforms and programs, not just here in Canada, but even in the Philippines to have these cultural immersions. I think that's one good thing that's happening now, right, compared to a few years ago, but those things are not available for them. So, as a follow-up question, what do you think? Like with all these assets that we have, cultural values, programs, institutions, mentors, leaders, what do you think is very key or very important in establishing a stronger foundation for the community? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll answer that question by starting with the identity question first. I think this is important because much to what you described, and as well as the senator, I had 3 identities. I had a Zambian, aka African-born, Filipino Canadian. So I struggled so hard when I was younger because I didn't know which was which. And it was part in the journey of being, you know, going from corporate banking, becoming an entrepreneur. It's actually, I really struggled. I didn't really know where I fit in, basically. But once I became an entrepreneur and through my Filipino Fusion Dessert Company, where I was selling like ube, calamansi, desserts to the world and talking about my childhood, up to that point, I never really talked about who I am. But the desserts and owning that business allowed me to talk about my parents. Allowed me to talk about where I was from. And then it really helped me lead into what it was. And so once I started to have that dialogue with other people, that's when I started to realize how important talking about those experiences are. So I actually think that is the point of owning that business and finally kind of leaning into my Filipino-ness. I've said this in previous FCNC gatherings, our Filipinoness is our superpower. And I want each and every one of us to lean into that in whichever way you feel best manifest in your own life. Because that truly is, it's what makes us unique. So earlier the question was, how are we going as a Filipino gay community? Like you can speak to all the points talked about earlier. This is who we are. We're kind people, we're hardworking people. And as much as we have an ambassador, Gigi, I want you to know you're all ambassadors. Like we have titles, but so do you. Each one of us has a collective responsibility to represent our Filipino community in whatever industry you work for, in whatever region of the country you live in. Because the intersectionality of our experience is what truly is the differentiator so that we can continue to excel. So I hope that answers your question. But your identity is so important, and the more we tap into that and lean into it and be unafraid to be exactly who we are and live truly authentically, that's what makes us beautiful people. So, and I hope that answers.
Be unapologetic. Correct. But so that's it. There was one of the employee programs. Do you hold back being Filipino just to make your way into career ladders, or just to get on a right job, or to assimilate to the community? Do you have to hold it back?
So, and I mean, I'll talk about all of us on this stage. I don't think any of us can walk into our room and not be seen as Filipino. You can't hide it. You can't change it. You can't mask it. So you do have to, as Mr. Valdez said, own it, be proud of it, and be unapologetically who you are. You can't hide who you are. But again, depending on the space that you're walking into, if it's corporate banking, I know that Valdez knew how to be her authentic self, but within corporate banking, or in my world, how to be authentically me, but in the world of medicine, or in the world of foreign affairs, or in the world of pastoral as a media executive. And so it's understanding that you cannot change who you are not what. But how do you accept it? How do you use it? You can't unvalidate it. If I invalidate that, it invalidates all of you. But it is accepting it and using it. And especially when you've got positions like we have, how do you use your Filipino-ness to lift others up?
So you can bring Binagoong to your room, okay? Or maybe even adobo. Things that
Short story. To your question, do you hold back? I don't think we do. In my time living abroad, my business in the US, being Filipino actually opened doors for me. Graduating from college, I had two jobs. One was to be a reporter in Valdez. Valdez was in the Bay Area in California. And the reason why they did this is they had a growing Filipino community in Valdez. They were a reporter to basically cover the Filipino community. Unfortunately, I did not accept that offer because I felt like I owed something to the publisher where I worked in Oklahoma. So I ended up working there where I was the only non-white guy in the newsroom. But even then, being Filipino was not a barrier for me to try. Everyone was so loving, everyone was very curious about me. Maybe because I look different, but they're curious about the Philippines. And this was an opportunity to share with them our history, their values, the things that I like. And so I don't think you should. It's a very personal thing. It can open doors for you. especially now that you have a much larger community now than what I saw 30 years ago in Canada. I think it could definitely be an asset to the minister and be competitive. And I think that should be to be the mindset.
Can I just add a couple of things just to round up the first discussion on identity? One is, well, maybe just a reminder to all of us. This is something that I emphasized during the graduation ceremony the other week. We had a summer camp for Filipino Canadian kids in Ottawa. So in their graduation ceremony, one thing that I emphasized, and I must say I agree with everything that my co-panelists said about the issue of identity. But one thing I think as parents we need to remember always is that our children do not need to choose whether they are Filipino or Canadians. They are both Filipinos and Canadians. It's probably, I'm looking at you, I know many of you, I don't think you're the kind of parents, but unfortunately I've had discussions in the last 12 months that I've been in Ottawa with kids and youth, where apparently there are still some parents who make their children choose whether they're Filipinos or Canadians, and I hope they don't do that. Now, the other thing I also wanted to say about identity is that I'm happy that Secretary is here with us this week, and I think he's flying to Denver for the NAFA, the NAFA conference, which is the U.S. Counterpart, I guess, of FCNC. I served in the U.S. for 6 years, and one thing that I noticed there was that, of course, the U.S. immigrant story of the Philippines is probably as long or maybe even a little bit longer than the one here in Canada, not counting Bowen Island of Benson. But I think there is this what we call the missing generation in the U.S. That generation of Filipino Americans that felt completely unrooted and not connected at all to their history and to their heritage. As our diaspora here grows at 1 million strong today, we hope to be able to avoid that particular missing generation. And I'm happy with initiatives like FCNC, of course, Ambassor, Flordeliz, and of course the initiatives of the Embassy and the Consulates General across Canada to make sure that our kids, our youth, our children, our children's children will continue to be proud of their heritage.
That's a very good point, actually. And I like what you said. I know that we do not have to choose whether we're Filipinos or Canadians or Filipino Canadians. We have to inculcate that into the minds of our children, for those who are parents in the room. Okay? Yes, you said. Anyway, for the future, right?
Yes, continuing the topic or the discussion on intergenerational progression, I'd like to introduce the topic of Filipinos in the digital age. So my next question actually is for Senator Osler. A bit of context, my educational background is in public health, and during my undergrad, it was the peak of the wearable technology wave. I remember writing papers on the potential of medical robots and AI-assisted diagnostics. Fast forward to today, and AI is transforming healthcare, education, communities, and even how we build and organize communities. At the same time, these technologies bring challenges around misinformation, burnout, and maintaining human connection. So my question is, as we continue to embrace these technologies, how can we ensure that they strengthen rather than replace the relationships and sense of community that matter most?
Yeah, that's a really narrow, small question, so thank you for that. Answer. Let me take you back to the early days of the pandemic. And we're all in 2020 during the pandemic when everything had to be virtual almost right away. So I was practicing medicine back then. And in the year before, we were having very serious conversations about virtual care. It was not widely used in practice. I'm going to pull a number out of my head. Maybe 6% of visits in 2019 were virtual. And we actually produced a white paper on it and looking at the government structure. How do you do it? Then the pandemic hit. And by June 2020, something like 60%, again, pulling this number out of my head, 60% of all healthcare visits were virtual. Out of necessity, they had to. What we learned, and what we knew going into the pandemic and then what we were during the pandemic, was that even with the convenience of virtual care, so phone call visit, televisit with a healthcare provider, people still wanted the human connection. With AI, with robots, with technology-assisted healthcare, people still, and polls showed that people still wanted the human connection. They did not want to abandon that to robots and AI. Because the need for human connection is so intense. Loneliness, particularly among some groups, seniors, is a huge problem. And that loneliness epidemic speaks to the need for human connection. So when I look at a lot of the technology, I just narrow it down to healthcare. We need to find ways to bring in technology, whether it's AI, whether it is virtual care, whether it is robot-assisted surgery. There always has to be human connection, human oversight, because that's what we as human beings want, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Yeah, and one follow-up question to that is, how can community leaders build digital literacy amongst youth and our citizens?
So digital literacy is a really, really important topic, I think, for, I'm going to point to Jen, for your generation and younger generations. They are growing up completely digitally literate. It is just part of it. They didn't have to learn it. I'm going to tell you, I'm assuming my fellow panelists, we had to learn it because this technology that was introduced to us. In terms of literacy, I would say part of that needs to include critical thinking of the information that's coming to you on all your devices. Because mis and disinformation is out there. Mis and disinformation is used for profit in certain industries. It is certainly used by state actors to interfere with other countries, particularly democratic countries, processes, institutions. And some of that mis and disinformation is coming from previously trusted sources and people. It is being packaged in a way that is extremely realistic. You look at some of the deep fake imagery and videos that's out there, it's hard to know. So part of digital literacy should include critical thinking. How do you research sources? Someone is telling you this on social media. Okay, how do I now go and check what they're saying? Are they citing their sources? What is their source? Is that a reputable source? Who is funding that source? So some of that is some of the critical thinking that's needed. Some of it also when it comes to information, this on the internet. Often we have a tendency to react right away because the most compelling information is very emotional. And that's what makes some things go viral, because it makes you emotional. So pausing to think about it rather than reacting right away is extremely important. Now, in terms of who's going to be in charge of literacy, I think it needs to be a shared responsibility. It cannot fall on governments alone. And in Canada, education is crucial. I think the federal government has a role, the federal government, when it comes to AI, is taking a leadership role and ensuring there is AI literacy. Provinces have a role, I think communities have a role, I think parents have a role. In the very least, we have conversations with our families, our children, our elders about what they're seeing not just your kids, and trying to understand what are they seeing. Is it true? Is it not? Is it deeping? Is that AI? So I think a broader conversation that needs to be had by multiple groups and multiple levels.
Okay, can I just add a couple of things? I will start with the last one on AI literacy on misinformation, disinformation. That's a really real challenge for us, particularly in getting out official information. So there's a lot of things to be said there. But I wanted to share a couple of things in terms of the embassy and how we engage with the community and all of this digital literacy and all the evolution in artificial intelligence, in communications technology, etc. And just two discrete examples. One is on how to deal with the embassy. So obviously there's a divide there. There's a generational gap, and which we need to address both at the same time, which of course takes up a lot of resources on the part of the embassy, which is very limited resources to start with. Because we have the older generation that still, as Senator was saying, needs this, hand-holding. They want a voice to speak to on the phone. They want, emails don't work for them. Obviously, online transactions don't work for them. So that has been a challenge because obviously we have very limited people to answer phones. We don't have call centers like Valdez or Sun Life to field the huge volume of calls. So that's always been a problem. I'm sure you've seen complaints on our Facebook site or other places that why is no one answering the phone, because there's just there's not enough people who are to answer phone calls. And of course, once the phone call starts, they need an ABC of exactly what to do. But I'm not complaining. I'm just demonstrating the generational gap. Now, on the other hand, when I was assistant secretary for American Affairs, I had interns that evaluated the websites from our embassies and consulates general in the Americas. And their comment was, we're not using digital tools enough, that it's so complicated, everything is spelled out, that there's so much information that's unnecessary, and things like that. So again, those information are usually necessary for the older generation, but the kids find them too cumbersome, and then they just want the specific details of what they need to do or what they need to find to be aware of. So that's one. The other thing though is in terms of cultural diplomacy, for example. Philippine Ballet Theater, the National Ballet Company, the CCP, wants to come and perform in Canada. I don't know if you're going to have the same reaction, but we did an informal survey in Ottawa. Among the older generation, there was less excitement about seeing Philippine ballet being performed in Ottawa. But among the young generation, including members of Parliament, there was a lot of excitement. So I mean that's unscientific, but as they said, I think it just demonstrates all of the complicated, aspects of all of the developments in technology that we need to deal with as it impacts, lots of sectors, lots of spaces, including diplomatic work here.
On the topic of digital literacy, I have a few points to make based on what everyone has shared. First, let's talk about the strength of the Filipino community when it comes to technology. If you're all wondering why we're avid users of Facebook, back in the late 2000s when Facebook launched, one of the C-suite executives was Filipino. He's a good friend of mine. His main job was to roll out Facebook around the world. Where did he start? The Philippines. And of course, our adoption rate was not only the fastest, the quickest, and that is why still till this day, the Filipino community are dominant in terms of digital literacy, in terms of Facebook when it first launched. That is our strength. Then after that, all the technology companies that wanted to launch new products, where did they start launching new products first? In the Philippines. And as soon as they were able to see that the Filipino community was able to quickly adopt new technology, they then launched around the world. So that's our strength. So let's start from a position of us being really amazing when it comes to technology. Second, as Senator Osler said, when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is now emerging, Canadians need to make sure that they are in the forefront. So what our government has launched under the leadership of Minister Evan Solomon is our artificial intelligence strategy, which is artificial intelligence for all. So we want to be a country that democratizes artificial intelligence so everyone can have access to it. So as you're going to see as we roll out the strategy, you've heard a few points of the importance of this. We want to make sure that average Canadians can use, adopt, learn, and use artificial intelligence, but in a very safe way. So we're working on some of those nuances, and if you are a small business owner, for me, what I'm interested in is making sure that AI can be leveraged by small businesses to help your small businesses become more productive, and to ensure that you understand how to leverage it to grow your sales, etc. Now, for all the women and families in the group of young parents, which is kind of the topic you first started talking about, is the challenge that artificial intelligence presents when it comes to safety. Because of AI deepfakes and, news, nearly news. So what our government, if you didn't see the legislation that was just passed in July, we implemented Bill C-16, which is the Protecting Victims Act. A lot of things in there, but when it comes to AI, what we've done is we have criminalized the sharing of non-consensual deepfakes and nearly news. And the reason, this deeply impacts us women and our children. So I just want to share from a technology perspective, we kind of defended that right away. And in addition to that, what we've tabled in our legislation just recently, and we're going to debate it in the fall, is legislation that keeps youth safe online. So we're looking to restrict the access for social media for those under the age of 16, as they are the most vulnerable in our communities.
I just have one curious, just curious, out of curiosity, Secretary. I know you love to be called Secretary. I just have one, being a journalist, like I know source of truth back then is different nowadays. Like it's not just for the younger generation, but for our generation as well. Like how do we guard that nowadays? Like everybody wants to be bloggers and they call themselves journalists. So how do we guard that? Like how do we put it in the right perspective for anyone who would be interested to be?
There was a time when those in our industry were advocating citizen journalism. Now, fast forward to today, as you said, this has become a problem with individuals presenting themselves as news sources. But it's something else, totally something different. Now, we are in a new age where we are inundated by information, but so little of that is truth. And the truth is complicated. It's not an aha moment that that's the truth. And, so it's very tricky. And you're asking about how related to this question, you're asking about how we encourage the younger generation to be literate. It's such a section. We have no problem. My kids are much more literate than I am. It's not the problem. The problem, I think, is not as I said, it's critical thinking. Now, as a journalist, I would quite let go of that direction. So I'll go back to the Buster after my time as CEO. We have a certain discipline on how we look at information. The way we have been trained and drilled in how to be able to produce a newspaper every 24-hour period. And that is to question everything that is here. Now, I know there's a lot of things to be concerned about with the proliferation of AI and deepfakes and other things that may come up in the future because of technology, but I'm quite confident that we will somehow find their way. If you look at the history of media, we've had something like this before, maybe not the same scale or speed. There was, of course, radio, and people thought that they would not have to read the news, they would have to listen, of course. And there was a big concern for newspaper publishers back then. Newspapers survived. And then when I was growing up, television was dominant. People were concerned about violence in TV, how it was impacting children, that maybe it is a threat to newspapers and reading. But now TV is in peril because of new media, social media, and new things that we are seeing out there. Newspapers are still there. Of course, there were some that did not survive. Paper that I worked for in Oklahoma was an evening paper. Most evening papers in North America died. It was bought with the 6 p.m. TV newscasts. But newspapers are still around. The way we look at things, making this point, is very differently. Trying to question everything that we hear or see. And that's a discipline that I think would be useful to any consumer of information in today's age. And I'm quite confident that as we deepen our experiences with these community colleges and the ones that will be emerging, because there's a lot of this in the pipeline, comprehensive after they die. We will find a way. I remember there was a time when people would say, don't believe everything you read in the newspaper. And then it became, don't believe everything you see on TV. And I'm sure there will be a time say, don't believe everything you see on the internet. And then we will find a way. It's just that in my study of media history, there have been periods where we struggled with the developments or the advances in information. That's not to say that there are no issues. There are serious issues with the algorithms and the misuse of platforms that spread disinformation. But I'm sure we will find a way. The key is, I think, to encourage certain disciplines. And first among those, I think, is to read. And I think it might seem odd, but reading, I think, is the usually the building block to fortify your mind and become critical thinking. The people asking, do people still read newspapers these days? I tell them yes. That's part of our well-being. There are millions more reading newspapers these days. My problem, before I joined the CFO, and the problem of most publishers around the world is that people want to read free. So it was a problem of monetization rather than anything else. But I think if we are to help the next generation grapple with the challenges of the future, critical thinking is one. The way to build that is first. And I am quite confident that people will take to it. Even though there are so many available resources, things now available that were not available for our generation.
I'd like to see a show of hands. Who still reads newspapers? Not on your phone. Okay? Newspapers. Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. That's good to hear. Well, do you think the Filipinos in general, Filipino Canadians or the diaspora, do you think we are all set up to succeed and be like ready for the digital age? Anything that's not AI and everything else we can find. You think we are?
Well, I just cited many examples.
Yeah.
We're still, again, I go back to what I said, we're still running.
Yes. We're still ready. And from the other parts of the world, Secretary, I'm saying the same thing like Filipinos.
I believe so. The Filipinos are very entrepreneurial. They're very resourceful. I'm quite confident about the thing. I've seen it. I've not only having lived abroad for many years, but also traveled abroad and met many individuals from different parts of the world. I'm quite confident as we see success more community everywhere. So we're quite confident we'll do well.
Okay, now it's time for me to stretch my legs. I'm not getting any younger, but I think I saw some people here in the room as well who are trying to jump off. Now it's your opportunity to ask questions before we move on to the next topic. Oh, I see something else stretched. Again, reminders for questions, okay? Your name, organization, city and province, and then your question. Okay.
The name is from DC, space organization, Circuit Independent Space Society. Good afternoon, dear panelists, Mr. Valdez, Secretary Kling, Senator Osler, and Ambassador Gonzaga. I have a question here, but you'll be able to give a collaborative answer. So it's regarding maybe Secretary Kling will be able to, but here is my question or scenario. During the visit of President Ferdinand Marcos, was there a table solution, or was there a solution table to discuss regarding temporary workers, mass deportation due to immigration policy changes? Thank you.
I think Ambassador, to say that, are you referring to Canada or the US?
That's possible. Or that.
Thank you. I'll answer that. I'm not going to be able, obviously, to divulge any of the details, but yes, the president did raise the issue with Prime Minister Carney. I think the discussion was very candid, and I think Prime Minister Carney certainly heard the president's concerns and views very clearly. It's not really to both governments and officials like myself to continue the discussions to make sure that we address the concerns and issues that both leaders discussed. But I would just caution about, and this is with respect to the immigration issue, but I would just caution on the use of mass deportation because I don't think we see any deportation at that scale here in Canada. So let's just be very careful about the terminologies that we use. But certainly, both leaders discussed this issue.
Thank you, Ambassador. Is that correct?
I will just make one comment because I too was present there as well with the ambassador. Although I can't divulge the information of the conversation, here's what I can say. This is so effective. With 1 million Filipinos strong across the country, we've now elevated our partnership with the Philippines from one that was strong with people ties to one that is a strategic economic partnership. And at that session where we met the president and welcomed him here to in Canada and Vancouver, we signed 4 memorandums of understanding. 1, which is security and defense. The second, which is tourism. Third is culture. And to answer your question, labor. And the reason why we signed the one on labor is because we recognize the opportunities we have to make sure that with the number of Filipinos that are here within Canada, we're going to strengthen both our economy here in Canada, but also the Philippines, as we have people who live here and in the Philippines and moving back and forth. So I think that is demonstrating that that's our true commitment for both countries to make sure we continue to support our Canadian Filipino workers.
Thank you. I think we have another question here.
I'm Ron number 2 I'm the Philippine Center in Ottawa. My question is, there was actually somebody from your office, Mr. Valdez, called us and asked us if it would be possible for us to organize consultation among the Filipino here in Ottawa, because there's an observation that Filipinos are not able to contribute to the budget preparation here in Canada. So if you can please describe to us the process of how can we, not only Filipino community, but other different communities can contribute to the budget.
That is such a good question, given that it is budget season as we speak. There's a couple things I'm going to say. First, in terms of budget, our budget is going to be released. We changed the format of our budget since we came into government. We're going to be releasing our budget in November. There is a deadline to submit budget submissions. So what is budget submissions? Budget submissions are an opportunity for all sectors across all industries, all community groups, Canadians, industries, with businesses to submit to our federal government your requests or your asks in terms of policy changes. This is headed up by the Minister of Finance, which is Minister Chan-Gonzaga. And what I can say is, to your point, you're absolutely right. Have the Filipino Canadian communities been actively involved in submitting a budget? No, unless you were, say, some part of some other larger organization that submitted as a collective. So the reason why you got a phone call is what we changed this year. This is my team and I. You've got a call from Carla. Is we wanted to make sure that Filipino Canadians had the opportunity. So what we did different in the month of June, which is Filipino Heritage Month, as you know, is we hosted roundtables with the Filipino Canadian communities, with ministers, MPs, myself, on different topics, especially the ones that hit closer to home for us in terms of federal advocacy. And so we were able to host those, which were very effective. But in addition to that, the reason why I turned what I said earlier about us being ready, the challenge that we had back in 2021, and in terms of my observation, is we simply weren't united on what we wanted to say. But the good news is, the reason why I'm telling you you're doing a great job is finally we are showing up and wanting to have a voice in the first place. So number one, we now actively want to have a voice. I can't tell you how important that is. That is step number one. You want to have a voice, a basin. Now it comes down to what are the vehicles or the opportunities for you to have that voice. So thanks to the leadership of Power Forward, particularly Charmaine, and Wani's working actively with them. They're helping take the learnings from those roundtables and then sending it to multiple community groups to then collectively, they actually have teams of people who are collecting this data and information so that you can submit to Parliament, i.e. us, one budget letter with all your sort of main asks on the various, it could be small business, it could be on immigration, it could be on health, but you collectively now have a vehicle to have a voice. Now, good news, you don't have to wait to just wait. That's not your only opportunity. You can meet with your own member of Parliament in every city or country that you are in, or senator. Whoever your federal leader is, this is your chance to go meet with them, tell them what's on your mind. All of that effective advocacy down to an individual group level helps you contribute to your overall asks in terms of budget submission into our federal government. So, in a nutshell, submit a budget letter. It's due by September. Wani stand up. Yeah, he has all the details. They have a team working on it. And so, as Wani told me earlier, this is historic, right, Wani? So, yeah.
And speaking about that, we're actually going to get everybody involved in another part of this forum. So, yes.
You know what? If you don't mind, I want to share it with you. Since we're
You want to get into it now? Okay.
we're running to the topic, so there's a section there that anything in that presented by me. But for the information of my profile and all the organization leaders and everybody, so we are preparing federal pre-budget submission. So the deadline is going to be in September. So FCNC are fortunate and to take a lead. But we are not the sole mover of this. It's the community. So I am part of the working group representing FCNC. And there's the Mabuhay District Manitoba representative, and also the contact from BC. So we are already probably 70% close to the submission. So we're working hard for the paperwork. So right now, the other team are working on the roundtables online. So everybody will receive invitation to join the roundtables, consultation survey. So part of this conversation, as a community, we will submit for the first time the federal pre-budget submissions. We will participate. So let's try and comply.
Okay. Looking forward now, imagine it's 2036, 10 years from now, and the Filipino Canadians are thriving. What do you think is visibly going to be different in families, workspaces, businesses, and even public life? How do you see the Filipino Canadian community in 10 years?
I already talked about us being ready, so imagine a world where our voices are actively being heard, not just at the federal level, folks. We're talking about provincial and municipal. So I love that you're submitting a pre-budget letter, but please know that type of process exists in every one of your provinces and in every one of your municipal cities and local municipalities. So if you fast forward, one, we're going to be, so if I start from where I started, which was we weren't united, we weren't talking to each other, and we weren't connected, the future then is the complete opposite. It's one that we are global, we are actively involved, we are having and sharing our voice, and to be honest, folks, that's all that matters. Active engagement from all Filipino Canadians across the country.
We are close to the time of our first part of the PA forum. Yes, sure.
Well, as your ambassador here at this time, and looking at what's in 10 years, 20, 30 states, I just have two dreams, actually. Well, aside from having geography, two dreams. One is credentials recognition. We've been working on credentials recognition for so long now. I'll just share, a couple of weeks ago, I was in New Brunswick. I met this 18, 17-year-old Filipina. She's not a PR yet. She belongs to an international student family. The mother is an international student. The family is there in New Brunswick. Father, 30-year veteran of St. Luke's Medical Center, ophthalmologist. Nada, working as assistant in the surgery room. What really struck me, what moved me, what made me think so far about credentials recognition is this 17, 18-year-old kid saying, Mr. Ambassador, why is this the case? This is Canada. I've always emphasized that credentials recognition, well, I'll step back first. I've also emphasized to both our Canadian hosts as well as the Filipino community and Filipino professionals that obviously it is the sovereign right of Canada, as it is the sovereign right of any country, including the Philippines, to make sure that we regulate professionals. We want to make sure that the doctors we put in the hospitals, the teachers we put in classrooms are all qualified and they'll be able to provide services safely. But I've also emphasized that this is a matter of fairness and justice. That we need to ensure that the system also is fair, that it's just, and that it looks at transparently and in a fair way cases such as this doctor, 30-year veteran of St. Luke's Medical Center, one of the most respected hospitals, not only in the Philippines, but in Southeast Asia. So I'm hoping in 2056, we would have been able to at least have some benefit in terms of credential recognition. That's the first question.
One of your territories govern FCC for credential recognition differently. They all have different roles. They are not consistent. Please, like, plead to your local, provincial, and territorial government.
And then of course the second, I think 2036, I just wanted to second what Mr. Rechie said. For Filipinos to be more active in public life, whether at the federal level, like such as her and Senator Osler, or in your local governments. And then the last thing, I think, is something that will cut across everything and that will ensure that will continue to become a vibrant, thriving community here. And it's really that I hope, but that in 10 years' time, in 2036, you will continue to maintain the spirit of pioneership that I see today, that I've seen many years ago, that I hope I'll always see, that we will always see. Because at the end of the day, it's really about you. It's about how you help each other, how you support each other, how you respect each other. Thank you.
I'll be brief because I know time is short. If one, to pick up on what the ambassador said, foreign credential recognition, to pick up with what the ministry said. In Canada, the regulatory bodies that regulate the different professions are almost exclusively provincial. So as a doctor, I'm regulated by College of Physicians and Surgeons in Manitoba, and they're working on it, but their process and standards may be different from Ontario, which makes it even difficult for somebody trained in Canada to move to another province to get a license there. Because currently you have to have a license in each province that you work in. So streamlining that has been a talking point of mine for 10 years now. I think there's more movement on it than it ever has been. But that foreign credential recognition really would be an enabler and an accelerator for Filipino Canadians across Canada to thrive, and especially be thriving in 10 years. So foreign credential recognition is something very important to you. As Mr. Valdez said, speak to your federal MP, speak to your provincial MP or MLA, especially speak to them, because it's the provinces that have the ability to really control that. So that's kind of what I thought it is, so I'll stop there. We're out of time anyway, so that's a perfect way to end it.
Well, just to close the discussion, what is the one message that you want individuals in this room to take home with them as they continue building the future of our community? You can start with Secretary.
Well, one I think is that on behalf of the Philippine government, thank you. Thank you for all that you do. As I said, we are very proud of the successes that you made here. And if there's one message, I know that many of you are looking back. And the wonderful thing about Filipinos is they never turn their back on the Philippines. They find ways to connect and help somehow. And maybe the one message is that for those of you who are thinking of engaging, helping, collaborating, partnering, the Commission of Filipinos Overseas is your secretariat or anything that you want to do. I know that the desire is there, maybe because of distance, because of time, you've lost connections, you don't know how to go about doing the things that you want to do. We can be that partner on the ground for you to make things happen.
Thank you so much. Let's give them another round of applause. Okay, now you have to sit again because you now have to work. You've been listening too long and they've been doing all the talking. Now you need to do your share of the work, okay? So while we are taking pictures, okay, I'm going to put down my microphone for a second. Quick picture.
you, please. Bye.
And I get everyone to look here. Like, vomit.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, now you go back to your seats, grab your pens and papers. The discussion earlier was recorded, so we are actually going to share a summary of the experience on the discussion.
And translation. On the Mabuhay, FCNC, FCNC, leadership and from Gigi.
Going back.
From BC, Osler.
Wonderful gift to our panelists. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat. And thank you to Claire, and thank you to Gisette for doing such an amazing job. Okay. I know we're running out of time, but I would ask you to please write down on a piece of paper.
Have.
Missing.
This
If there's actually a question,
the display answer
just fill in the blanks. Okay, we are going to collect the paper and we're going to publish whatever is the outcome and share it with everyone. So the question is,
I think one of them.
I, Filipino, you put blank.
okay.
Okay, Filipinos put black. Filipino Canadians choose black, white, so I'm going to repeat that again. If Filipino Canadians put black, Filipino Canadians choose black, white 2026.
Blank, choose blank. Okay. Again.
Put black, Filipino Canadians,
Sorry.
black, white 2036. Okay. Has your policy answered that? Another part,
Anong province kayo?
very important.
Hello, Manitoba. Guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Arlene. Ito ang Montreal. Sandali. Montreal. Bonjour, Montreal.
I'm pretty sure you all want to be involved in the budget proposal. You all want your inputs and
Sorry. Anong province po kayo? Province.
Toronto. Sorry.
Toronto. Ottawa ako.
Nova Scotia.
Oh, Nova
Yeah,
Scotia.
Filipino Association of Nova Scotia fans.
Ayun.
you want to be part
Yokon.
of the budget consultation.
Ontario.
We are going to send you
Hello, Yukon.
to participate in the survey. We ask
Ready na sila. More from Yukon.
support of a handful of people
Say hi.
or a handful of organizations. It is for
Hello.
our community and by our community. Okay? So it is the Filipino Canadian community's budget proposal.
There is Rody.
So we will be sending out the survey.
Hello.
We kindly ask that you please participate.
Anong province po kayo?
Yes.
Sandali. Up. Stop.
Because at the end of the day, the information
Here.
that will be
Hey, thank you for having us. Kayo po.
we will be putting forward the proposal.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I know you all want to go.
Which province are most case to happen? Ottawa. Sorry, Ontario. Even in the North Cape.
How do you find the island?
Beautiful. Yes. People are very warm.
We got lobster last night. Thanks for having us. Hello, anong province po kayo? From which province are you? Oh, PI. Thanks for having us. Kayo po? Thank you for having us. Ciao. Tiga dito. Thank you. Kumusta ang community dito? Kumusta kayo dito? Sa Pinigay. Kumusta kayo dito sa Pinigay? Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
Taga saan po kayo, guys?
Ottawa po.
Ottawa, ma'am.
Oo, salamat.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Lota. Ayun, thank you. Ayan na. Hi.
Is that from the live po? Oh, I thought it's the live. Sorry.
It's live. It's live. It's live. It's live. Hi, saan province kayo?
Toronto.
Ay, Toronto.
We're here.
Thank you. Okay, so lumipat ako. Sis Eddie, makikingi ako ng favor. I have to do in the live. Ano ka lang, tuning mo lang para kunyari meron tayong live para tayo mag-hear. Okay, ito na po. Mga tapos kami. This is Eddie Vallarta here. And focus mo lang tayo, Joe. So, si Amba. Oo nga, si Amba. Diyan na tayo muna focus na i-end ko.
Can we get a round of applause?